Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel where we do painting tutorials and art videos. And today I want to discuss if it's worth the investment to get 100% pure cotton paper for watercolor arts. And I did say investment because that thing can be very expensive. Like a normal size sketchbook at my local art store is $100. That is mainly due to inflation, business costs going up, transportation fees, and simply that art supplies are not really that available in my country. Here I have some Fabriano Artistico 300 grams full cotton paper. It's rough texture, and I'm going to paint a little landscape with it while I talk about this paper. And this is just your plain landscape. I start by pre-weighing my watercolor pens, that way they're nice and creamy, they're at their best potential. I'm gonna paint first some well wet. I fully covered the paper with water. I've taped it down to my sketchbook because I want to try tilting it and see just how well is the paint going to flow on this paper. Then I mix a mass of yellow deep with some quinacridone rose and move it around for a soft sunrise or sunset scenery. Then just some cerulean on the top, and everything else for this whole paint is gonna be some permanent blue violet. And what I usually use on my channel, like 99% of the time, is our full cellulose paper. Or on rare occasions, I do use a mixture of cotton and cellulose. Now, what does all that mean? Well, cellulose paper is just that, it's cellulose fibers, which can be and usually is from trees. And then they mix all that in the fancy machines with something called sizing, and sizing does not actually refer to size in inches or centimeters, is a component added to those fibers. And that component is pretty key on how the whole paper is going to behave once it comes in contact with water. And my personal painting experience, now that I've been painting for, 8 years, pretty much, that I've been seriously, regularly painting, sizing is what makes or breaks paper. It can make poor cellulose paper behave amazingly, and it can definitely break great cotton paper, which you'd have your expectations pretty high for. And what I have here is Fabriano, and as far as I know, they use something called internal sizing, meaning once you wet the paper, the water is going to penetrate all of the fibers, and you're gonna have a longer dry time. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer compared to cellulose paper for it to dry, and you have a little more work time, meaning it comes off as being slightly more forgiving when you paint because it's gonna stay wet for longer. You can pick up your mistakes as you go with just a napkin. Tap the napkin and it acts as a magical eraser for pretty much anything, any mistake you can make. And even if it did start to dry on the surface, usually you can go in with a wet brush, just a clean wet brush, swoosh it around, and you can still work out your mistakes. Whereas on the opposite side, when we have cellulose paper, it does usually have a much quicker drying time, meaning you have a pretty narrow window when you can correct any mistakes you make, and it's not always possible to quote-unquote erase your mistakes. You cannot just pick them up with a napkin, and sometimes you may have a very hard time reweighing the surface and trying to pick it up with a napkin. You may have a difficult time reactivating your previous layers, is what I'm trying to say. So, long story short, cotton paper is much more forgiving. Now you can see here with these trees that I have painted, I just want to tap some easy highlights. I forgot to leave in highlights. I'm human, I make mistakes, even though I said I've been painting for 8 years. By no means do I mean I'm good at it. So I forgot the highlights, and I'm just gonna tap with a napkin, and voila, I have magical instant highlights. And I also mentioned that mixtures of papers do exist. Lately on my channel, I had been using a mixture of cotton and cellulose. And again, this is just my personal experience. It can be completely different from yours, but I do find if you chose to go with mixtures, please go for a higher weight paper. 300 grams and above 200 grams is by no means workable. You're gonna have a very difficult time. If you're just a beginner watercolorist, you may end up hating the overall process altogether. Like, you're not gonna get any joy out of it because it's difficult to work. If you have a bit more experience, you can absolutely make some pretty interesting art pieces. You can find ways to make it work, but please get some good thick quality paper. So what's the final verdict here? Well, paint with whatever it is you have on hand. If cotton paper is expensive where you live and that may be keeping you away from practicing your arts, grab some cellulose paper. Like, to this day, some of my favorite art journals are by Canson. Their Canson Monval series, the Canson XO, is also pretty nice, and I absolutely adore Hahnemühle watercolor papers. Whichever it is that you can find affordable locally, pick up that for practice. Like, pick up some other smaller sketchbooks with more pages, or a larger one you're gonna divide up yourself, and use that for practice. And if you wanna try your hand out with cotton papers, the biggest tip I can give you is buy a huge sheet of paper. Why? Because I bought a 50 by 70 sheet or 56 by 76 centimeter sheet. I don't remember the exact measurements, from my local art store. And this whole page was $8, €8. €8 and some cents. I'm not sure how much, like 8.30 or something of the sort, but for the sake of ease, I'm gonna say $8. And from the same exact art store, a whole sketchbook, yeah, it costs a lot. And chances are the same may apply to wherever you live. So if you have a proper art store near you, either check on their webpage if they have one, or stop by and look around with if they offer loose sheets of paper. What's amazing about loose sheets of paper is you can buy various amounts. Like, for example, this Fabriano Artistico offers rough, so-and-so, and smooth paper, and then they have like straight white and slightly off-white papers. But let's say you want to try various brands, you can buy 2, 3, 4 sheets of various kinds, various fibers, various everything, and you can actually practice without having to sell your kidneys. You can see what is that you like, what is that best suits your art style. Because, for an example, cheaper cellulose papers, they have external sizing, meaning it has not been added when all the pulps were being worked by the machines. It was just the glazing they put on top once the paper was made. And those papers can be amazing to preserve the vibrancy and saturations of color. So, for example, if you want to paint a galaxy or something that's very saturated and rich in terms of color, that may be something you would enjoy using. Because here with cotton papers, especially the ones that have internal sizing, like the one I'm using right now, since the water soaks into the fibers of the paper, the pigment also does that. It settles down in the fibers. Once it dries, you're gonna get a much lighter and desaturated result than what it looked like while you were working with it, while you were painting. So you end up needing many more layers to get a saturated result. And there are not just cellulose and cotton papers, there are also bamboo papers. Recently I saw on the internet they had also agave papers, like the same stuff you use to sweeten up your pancakes. There are hemp papers. There is a crazy amount of different kinds of papers and techniques manufacturers use. So yeah, the best way to find what is that best suits your needs and the thing you love the most, just try and see if you can get loose sheets of paper, because they're usually much cheaper, and try that out. Alternatively, if you have friends that are also into watercolors, you can buy each a sketch pad and then just switch up the sheets. Like, if I have cotton and my buddy over there has agave, I'm like, hey, do you want to switch a sheet each and we're gonna try each other's? And that's assuming you actually have friends and you don't live in a cave like myself. So I hope you got some use in this video. Let me know down in the comments if you enjoy this kind of content, and we'll see each other in the next one. Bye bye.